There was once a time when McLaren were the most feared titans in Formula One. Not only were they the most dominant team ever, but they also had the most iconic car, the brightest minds, and crucially, the fastest drivers on the grid. But in Formula One, only one driver can claim the championship crown.
We're looking at the new world champion.
This is the story of Formula One's greatest rivalry, Senna versus Prost. Back in 1988, Ayrton Senna was a star in Formula One, but a star without a championship. He had raced for Toleman and turned heads with his unforgettable Monaco 1984 race. At Lotus, Senna's skill was undeniable, but his car's fragility kept the championship just out of reach. His brilliance was clear, but so was the need for a machine that could keep pace with his talent. And as the 1988 Formula One season dawned, whispers turned into rumours, and rumours into headline news. Senna had signed a deal with McLaren, in a move which had everyone asking, would the 1988 McLaren be able to finally make Senna a Formula One world champion? And so, under the cover of darkness in Rio de Janeiro, McLaren began testing their 1988 machine, the McLaren MP4. Even before testing, expectations were sky high. They had the gold standard Honda engine, Gordon Murray as technical director, and two of the world's best drivers. However, even with so many cards aligning in their favour, no one could have predicted the absolute grid beater that McLaren had created. The team stepped into the first test with a car that had a clear advantage, not only in power, but also in chassis design. It was an all-rounder, and with two of the best drivers on the same team, McLaren was sending an ominous warning to the rest of the grid. But there was a problem for Senna. His teammate was Alain Prost. Alain Prost, known as the Professor for his calculated and strategic approach to racing, was already a legend in his own right. With 2 world championships under his belt, Prost wasn't just another competitor, he was a master tactician on the track. His rivalry with Senna wasn't just about speed, it was a clash of contrasting styles, mindsets, and sheer driving genius. Prost's brilliance lay not only in his ability to drive fast, but in his deep understanding of the car, the race, and his opponents. In the high-stakes world of Formula One, he was both a thinker and a warrior, a formidable force that Senna had to reckon with. And reckon he did, as only 1 month later, this happened.
Ayrton Senna has been given a black flag.
Here's Prost coming up to win the race, actually his 5th Brazilian Grand Prix. Here's Senna coming up to take the checkered flag. This is his first win, of course, in the McLaren.
It's the first 1-2 of the year for McLaren. Senna first and Prost was second. Senna went off and there was Alain Prost heading for his 4th Monte Carlo win.
This is the story of Senna versus Prost and the 1988 Formula One season. As the 1988 season kicked off, the McLaren MP4 quickly proved to be a beast on the track. Senna and Prost, 2 titans in the same team. They weren't just racing against a grid, they were in a battle against each other. Every race, every turn, every lap was a chess game at high speed. And Prost was winning, leading Senna 33 points, as Senna only had 15 going into the 5th round in Canada. To clinch a championship in Formula One, consistency is king, a truth well known in today's racing world. But cast your mind back to 1988 and you'll find a different beast altogether, the 11 best results rule. The rulebook twist meant that only a driver's 11 best finishes counted towards the championship. What did this mean on the track? Well, pure unadulterated racing.
There's Senna going by Satoru Nakajima.
Second, and Alboreto about to be relegated to 7th slot.
In a season of 16 races, strategies shifted, risks were redefined, and drivers weren't just aiming for a consistent finish, they were gunning for the top spot every single time. Under this rule, a season could see 11 victories overshadowed by 5 retirements, still triumphing over 10 wins and 6 runner-up finishes. By today's standards, it might seem like a backwards tactic, but in the 80s, it was a formula for some of the most thrilling, edge-of-your-seat racing. It was not just about crossing the finish line, it was about doing it in a blaze of glory. And the car made it look easy. McLaren had constructed the perfect cocktail of engine, chassis design, and personnel, culminating in one of the finest Formula One cars of all time. Yet the journey to Prost's glorious win at Brazil was anything but simple. Just 4 months earlier, the MP4 was nothing but an idea. Its final drawings weren't even complete. The creation of the car was an immense task, undertaken with an intense time crunch. But McLaren was driven by a clear vision to forge a totally solid all-rounder. The McLaren MP4, designed by Steve Nichols, was powered by a 1.5-litre turbocharged Honda engine, delivering around 700 horsepower, a formidable figure for the time. But the engine's merit didn't stop at raw power. It was also remarkably fuel efficient and incredibly reliable, even by today's standards. Yet, the engine wasn't the sole architect of the MP44's success. The car boasted cutting-edge aerodynamic innovations that enhanced both performance and stiffness. The team opted to stick with the proven technology of the monocoque chassis, affording them the agility to rapidly modify the bodywork throughout the season, responding quickly to any necessary adjustments or improvements. This combination of innovation and reliability made the MP44 one of the most dominant cars on the grid. Even Senna knew right away after the first test what a machine they had.
And he just said, this car is going to be effing quick.
But it wasn't just the car that was effing quick. When everything aligned, Senna was unstoppable. Formula One's crown jewel, Monaco, a place where glamour meets grit, and history is written on the streets. Since its debut in 1929, Monaco has been the face of racing, a dazzling display of girls, glamour, and gut-wrenching street races. For drivers, it's the ultimate test of skill, a street track with no room for error. One wrong move and you're in the wall. Hard, punishing, but oh so thrilling. The 1988 season brought the teams to Monaco's treacherous turns for its third race. Senna was trailing behind Prost in the championship, and he knew this was his chance to claw it all back. On qualifying day, the air was electric. Prost set a blistering pace, but Senna, ever the perfectionist, was not to be outdone. Pushing beyond the limits, he may have crafted the most extraordinary lap of his Formula One career. Senna later described the experience, a moment where he transcended the physical world. Suddenly, I realized that I was no longer driving the car consciously. I was driving it by a kind of instinct, only I was in a different dimension. His pole lap was a staggering 1.5 seconds faster than Prost, and nearly 3 seconds clear of Berger's Ferrari. Monaco was his theatre, and he was the unrivaled star. Come race day, the tension was palpable. Prost had a strong start, but Senna, in a league of his own, soon overtook him, stretching the lead lap by lap. Meanwhile, Prost was grappling with Berger's Ferrari, a duel that lasted most of the race, but Senna, over 50 seconds ahead, seemed untouchable, until the unexpected happened. With only 12 laps to go, and with an insurmountable lead, disaster struck at Portier. In a momentary lapse, Senna hit the wall and shocked everyone. A race that was dominantly led, now lost to the barriers of Monaco, and confusion was everywhere. Why push when victory seemed assured? But for Senna, pushing the limits was the essence of racing. After the race, Senna was nowhere to be found, believed to have retreated to his Monaco home to reflect on the race that was his for the taking. Meanwhile, Prost, the ever-consistent tactician, claimed another victory, further extending his lead in the championship. Monaco 1988 wasn't just a race, it was a stark reminder that in Formula One, consistency can rival sheer speed, especially in the face of unforeseen circumstances. With the early season's dust barely settled, the burning question lingered in the air. Who could clinch the championship? Would it be Senna with his electrifying speed and indomitable will, or Prost, the calculating strategist, whose consistency and risk aversion had served him well? Though Prost was cautious, it was only by comparison to Senna's relentless pursuit of victory. As the season progressed, each race was etched into the history books. Two of the greatest titans in Formula One were battling at every turn, every lap, and the tension was immense. It wasn't just a battle for points, it was a clash of philosophies. Could Senna and his talent really catch up to Prost and his calculated speed? Going into the 8th round of the season, McLaren were making a mockery of the Constructors' Championship, sweeping all before them with an astonishing 8 wins in as many races. The scoreboard told a tale of relentless pursuit, Prost leading Senna 54 points to 39, and in the Constructors' arena, McLaren had 93 points, lodged over Ferrari's 34. It was a spectacle of dominance, the likes of which had rarely been seen in Formula One, a testament to both engineering excellence and driving mastery. But as the engines roared to life in Silverstone, the question on everyone's lips wasn't if McLaren would win, but by how much? As the Formula One caravan rolled into Silverstone for the British Grand Prix, Alain Prost had just extended his championship lead with a 4th victory in France. Senna was trailing, but the gap was far from secure. Outside of these two gladiators, the competition led by Berger's Ferrari lagged behind, highlighting the true dominance of the McLaren Honda. The stage was set for Silverstone, a race steeped in racing lore. Senna, having only competed here twice before as a Formula One driver, was already the favourite, yet the air was thick with anticipation. Everyone expected another McLaren 1-2, Formula One is nothing if not unpredictable. In perhaps the biggest surprise of the season so far, Ferrari managed to lock out the front row.
For the first time in '88, there was no McLaren on the pole, not even on the front row. That honour went to Gerhard Berger in the Ferrari.
An unexpected shift in a season dominated by McLaren. Berger and Alboreto outpaced the formidable McLarens, with Senna and Prost over half a second behind Berger's time, relinquishing them to the uncharacteristic 3rd and 4th for the first time all season. The tides seemed to be turning. Race day dawned with the heavens open. Silverstone's tarmac a glistening sheen under the relentless rain. It was Formula One's first proper wet race in over 2 years. As the lights went out, the Ferrari squirmed away, with Alboreto briefly outpacing Berger before the Austrian reclaimed the lead through copse. Senna, in his element of the wet, was hot on their heels, but he couldn't find a way past the Italian. Meanwhile, Prost's miserable start saw him plummet to 9th, his championship lead under threat. But it was Senna, the Rainmaster, who began making moves early on. He edged past Alboreto, setting his sights on Berger and the lead. Then, in a display of sheer brilliance, on lap 15, Senna overtook Berger, slicing through the rain with incredible precision. As he lapped his own teammate, the message was clear: Senna was in a league of his own. Prost ended up retiring from the race, citing handling issues, and Senna surged ahead, untouchable, en route to a critical 4th victory for the season. This wasn't just a win, it was a statement. The championship was far from decided, and Senna was closing it, now only 6 points behind Prost. By the season's midpoint, only 2 drivers remained in real contention. The Constructors' Championship painted a different picture, one of McLaren's superiority, a staggering 102 points. Leaving their closest rivals Ferrari 68 points behind them, the equivalent of 4.5 races worth of points. As the teams left Silverstone, one thing was certain: the second half of the season was set to be a monumental showdown, a duel between 2 contrasting approaches to racing. As the Formula One season progressed, one driver seemed to ascend with an unquenchable fire: Ayrton Senna. His string of victories had turned the tracks into his personal playground, all leading up to the iconic Italian Grand Prix at Monza. This cathedral of speed was about to witness the story of relentless ambition and maybe even an unexpected twist. Meanwhile, McLaren's mastery was undisputed, securing the Constructors' Championship back in Belgium. With another 1-2 finish at Spa, they clinched one of the earliest victories in the history of the sport, leaving Ferrari and the rest in their wake. McLaren was on track to record one of the most dominant seasons of Formula One ever. Before the Italian Grand Prix, Prost was quoted as saying it was very possible that McLaren would take out a perfect 16 out of 16 victories. The winner would be determined by which McLaren driver would take the most wins, and on the chance they both took 8, it would be determined on their second places, which at the time, Prost had more of.
Could they win every race?
I think McLaren can do it, but of course it's difficult to predict. Sometimes can go wrong for both of us, you know. But the car, I think the team has the possibility of doing it, yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Despite having fewer wins. This meant Prost, who only had 4 wins, compared to Senna's 7, could only let Senna win one more time. Monza, the Temple of Speed, awaited the next act as the 1988 Formula One saga continued. Known for its high-speed straights and passionate fans, it is poised to be another McLaren showcase. In qualifying, Senna clinched his 10th pole position of the season, beating teammate Prost in their ongoing duel. The Scarlet Ferraris lined up behind, with Berger leading Alboreto. As the race commenced, Senna and Prost exploded off the line, the Brazilian leading the Frenchman. Behind them, Berger valiantly held off the challengers from the pack. The McLarens, as expected, began to pull away, their engines singing a duet of dominance. Yet, early on, Prost's engine began to falter, a misfire threatening to derail his race. Determined and defiant, Prost increased the boost, refusing to succumb to the mechanical gremlins that haunted his car and his championship hopes. By lap 30, the situation for Prost had deteriorated. His engine's misfire worsened, and he began to fall back, eventually being overtaken by the charging Ferraris. The Tifosi erupted in joy as their cars moved into contention. Prost, his race run, retired on lap 35, leaving Senna alone at the front. Inspired by the crowd, Berger and Alboreto began a relentless pursuit of Senna. For a time, it seemed like Senna had the race under control, pacing himself against the Ferrari's charge. But Formula One is never without surprises. In a heart-stopping moment at the Rettifilo chicane, Senna attempted to lap a backmarker. Misjudgment collided with misfortune, and the 2 cars touched.
And very wide spin! Senna! Ayrton Senna spins!
Senna's McLaren was crippled, stranded helplessly on the track's edge. As the Ferrari swept past the stricken McLaren, the Italian crowd erupted. Berger led Alboreto home, claiming a victory that seemed impossible at the start of the day. For the first time in 1988, McLaren had been outdone. The championship narrative had taken an unexpected twist, with Senna merely 3 points ahead of Prost. The title fight was tighter than ever, with only these two gladiators left standing in the championship arena. As Monza echoed with the cheers of the Tifosi, the season moved towards its climax. Senna and Prost were locked in a titanic struggle, each knowing that every point, every moment could decide the fate of the championship. The battle was far from over, and neither driver could afford to give an inch.
望みをつないだ今シーズン
Not only ahead of Senna, but 1.2 seconds ahead of him now. And that's a very...
Everything was leading up to a climactic showdown at Suzuka, Honda's home turf. The 1988 Japanese Grand Prix was delicately balancing the Formula One championship, with the 11 best rule now reshaping the title chase. Prost's recent victory had only marginally improved his standings due to it replacing a second place from earlier in the season. This meant that it left the door open for Senna to seize the moment, as if Senna won, he would be the champion. The tension was immense, as the 11th all-McLaren front row took shape for the year. But as the race began, there was a massive upset. Senna stalled on the grid. Luckily, Suzuka was the only track on the calendar that had a sloping grid. This meant that Senna could bump start the car. He ended up bringing the McLaren back into the fight, but he plummeted to 14th in the process. Prost, meanwhile, took command, leading the pack in first with a comfortable margin. Unfortunately for Prost, the race wouldn't be so easy, as race began to fall on the Suzuka circuit, making things much more difficult. This rain helped Capelli briefly surge to the front, becoming the first non-turbocharged car to lead an F1 race since Detroit 1983. But this moment at the top was short-lived, with Prost reclaiming the lead soon after. The battle with Capelli had other effects, and not all was well in Prost's cockpit. A lurking gearbox issue began to rear its head, and with the weather turning, the stage was set for Senna to show why he was the Rainmaster. Cutting through the field with a blend of aggression and artistry, Senna closed in on Prost. Lap by lap, he got closer, driving amidst the traffic in the challenging wet-dry conditions. On lap 27, Senna was close behind Prost as they attempted to lap some more back markers. Senna managed to force his way through not only the traffic, but also Prost, who was delayed by the other drivers. Senna was leading the 1988 Japanese Grand Prix, and if he won, he was the champion. With precision and pace, Senna then proceeded to shatter lap records, stretching his lead with every turn. At this point, Senna was on slick tyres on a wet track, and he was calling for the race to be stopped. Senna powered on, finishing a triumphant 13 seconds ahead of Prost, clinching the World Drivers' Championship in dramatic fashion. His victory not only secured the title, but also set a new record for wins in a single season, with 8 wins, a record that was previously jointly held with Prost and Clark. As Senna crossed the finish line, the narrative of the 1988 season was complete. The star without a championship had ascended to the pinnacle. In the year of '88, Senna's relentless pace overcame Prost's calculated approach. The Professor had been bested by the Rainmaster, marking a new chapter in Formula One's storied history. As the engines cooled and the crowds dispersed, the 1988 Formula One season was now history. It was a year defined by the fierce rivalry of Senna and Prost, breathtaking racing, and a level of dominance that is rarely seen in the sport. Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, two giants on the track, pushed each other to the limits of speed and strategy. Their rivalry wasn't just about the races they won, it was about the sheer force of will, the relentless pursuit of perfection, and the dramatic spectacle they provided for fans around the world. The battles, the tension, and the unparalleled skill that was displayed have continued to influence generations of drivers, and it still resonates in the world of Formula One today. McLaren's 1988 season remains one of the most dominant displays in the sport's history, with an astounding 15 out of 16 wins. Their 199 points in the Constructors' Championship also set a record that stood until 2002, a testament to the team's engineering excellence, strategic prowess, and the sheer talent of Senna and Prost. This season set a benchmark, which future seasons would be hard-pressed to measure up to. Though 1988 was a defining chapter, it wasn't the last of Senna's illustrious career. He would go on to win more championships, writing his name as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, drivers of all time. And as for Prost and Senna, their rivalry would continue into the 1989 season, once again fighting for the championship side by side. If you've enjoyed this video on Senna vs Prost, watch my video on the Micro V12 on screen now. I'm sure you'd enjoy.